now, Fox News contributor and criminal defense attorney. Donna, welcome to you. I believe we're going to have the president's words on Comey ready in just a minute. We're trying to turn those. But first, I want to get your thoughts on what we just heard from the president.
Well, Sandra, we're not surprised to hear what we heard from the president. Obviously, he believed that was a threat, given the fact that his life has been threatened more than once, and just last weekend, as you know, because you were there when it happened. And so, you know, we know that the president feels the way that he does about this. And frankly, I almost wonder if the president is doing this more as a deterrent to others, to say, if you do these things, we're going to make your life difficult, and you will have to fight a criminal case, and you will have to hire lawyers. And so almost as more of a deterrent. I'm not so sure in the end anybody truly believes that this will rise to the level of a conviction. I do think that there is a First Amendment claim to make here. And obviously, the First Amendment does not apply if these are actual threats. But I think the post alone does not rise to that level. So we'll see what the courts do about it. But I do think we will see challenges.
Yeah, you know, there's no federal statute that I'm aware of that you could convict somebody of being incredibly stupid. But that's what would seem to have happened here.
Well, I think you're right, John, and that's exactly what happened. And there is not a statute that does that. It was a stupid thing, and he knew it was a stupid thing. And we know that he knew it was stupid because he went out and not only took the post down after he posted it, but then gave an excuse and a reason for why he did it. I didn't realize people would think this was violent. I hadn't heard that term. And remember, we're all supposed to believe that he walked upon the beach and found the shells arranged that way. I mean, I think odds are he probably did that, took a picture of it, thought it was funny, and then later on realized this probably wasn't a very good idea.
You know, it was interesting. There was a question from one of the reporters in the room that, did you actually feel like your life was threatened? Interesting question considering what just happened in the last 48 hours, Donna.
Yes, and I think that's the whole point, right? The whole point is that, you know, Trump is obviously a strong guy. He wanted to come out again after this attempt on Saturday, and he wanted to come back out and have a dinner. So this is a strong person who's saying, I'm going to take these things. But at the same time, I think he feels like his life is threatened on a regular basis. So, you know, any of these posts, again, I think this criminal prosecution is probably more of a deterrent to others. And maybe there's a little bit of a desire for Trump to say, get a taste of the medicine that you tried to serve me.
So let me ask you this question about all this, because there's like personal intent and there's just throwing things out there. I mean, do you believe that this making a threat against the president that Comey is charged with doing, and then transmission of that threat, actually refers to him, that he was threatening the president? Or is it more the idea that if enough people say, get rid of the president, you know, we see these death to tyrants posters at all of these No Kings rallies, and we hear what's said on the left about Trump being a fascist and a threat to democracy, and he's going to end our democracy, that it may not be necessarily a direct threat that Comey is making, but it might just influence some weak-minded person or some mentally ill person who shows no compunction, like this guy allegedly did on Saturday night, to bringing a bunch of weapons into an event that he knows the president is going to be at, and then trying to assassinate the president.
I think you're absolutely right, John. I think that's exactly what's happening. I think all the rhetoric that we have been listening to since Trump came down the escalator at Trump Tower in New York, I mean, everybody has tried to get rid of him in one way or another since he announced his office for presidency, even when they thought he didn't have a chance to win. So I think this is definitely an issue. I think the rhetoric that is out there is clearly part of the reason we are watching these attempted assassinations on more than one occasion. So, yes, I do think that, again, it goes into the sort of deterrence factor here. Do we think that James Comey himself was actually going to try to get rid of the president? No. But what is James Comey trying to do? He's trying to fuel this fire, just like the Maxine Waters of the world that go out and say, rise up, and just like other politicians that say, we have to get rid of him, and he's a threat to democracy. And so everything that we continue to hear is part of that same rhetoric that puts us in this position right now.
Got it. Donna Rotunno joining us live on that. Thank you very much, Donna.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.